Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
I get people off. I look for the one guy who isn't getting off, and I make him get off.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
And George the Quarter. Coming later on to the show. We don't have a guest host this week. We will be back with one next week, provided everything lines up properly. And hopefully, I think in the next couple of weeks, we probably have people lined up. So I'll look forward to that. You can visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone'sacriticpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Like us there. Share it with your friends. Interact with us. Trailers are there. Sean's reviews. The 89 movies. We also have the Facebook group as well. We're on Apple Podcast, Alexa, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. If you leave a review, we'll read that review on the air. And if we haven't read one that you left, I haven't seen it yet, so send me a notice and I'll go look for them. I'm not sure how to find them on like Google Podcasts and Stitcher and whatnot. But
yeah, we might want to look into that.
Well, I don't think you can on Google Podcasts.
Really? That's weird, because, I mean, like, people could be just saying horrible things about us, and we'd have no idea.
I've looked at, I mean, Stitcher doesn't really matter. I'm not going to go to all the podcatchers and do it. But between Apple and, mainly Apple, that's where it matters the most, I guess, because it's the charts that people follow. But, I don't know, if you leave a review, if you let us know, we'll go look for it, too. But yeah, it helps the podcast get noticed amongst all the millions of other movie podcasts out there. And then Patreon, the best way to help support the podcast, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. There's also a PayPal link if you'd rather do that. And then there's the podcast merch at ihatecritics.net as well.
Yeah, we're underdogs. We're indie. Whereas there's the growing groups of companies out there with their many podcasts about movies. We're the indie group that's kind of flying under the radar, so we need your help.
Right. And most of those podcasts do one movie at a time. They're not as current as we are, and I don't know. I like our format.
I do too.
We
really love what we do.
Well, we do it
we love us.
We practically do it for free, so
pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, actually, we're losing money doing it, but it's okay. Trailers, Rambo 5, the one Michael talked about last week, finally came this week. And
you know how I feel. I mean, do you need me to rip this apart? Like, I hated every second of it.
I hated the music really, really bad.
Oh God, what the hell? I mean, just such a ridiculously calculated bullshit thing to do, to put that song in your trailer.
I think it's a stupid move. It's calculated, sure, but it's such a bad song. I know people like it, but I can't imagine the Rambo crowd does. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't think it was cool by any means.
Because it's intended solely to appeal to a younger audience. It's intended solely to try and reach that audience that this movie's not going to get. Sorry, he's not a movie star anymore. He's just not.
It'll be fine. But you got to go after me and Michael and that audience, not the kids aren't gonna. And putting that song pisses me off.
We're talking, of course, about Old Town Road.
Refuse to know the name of that song.
my goddaughter loves it. She's 7 years old. She thinks it's the greatest song ever. So what does that tell you? What is it doing here?
Maybe the worst song ever written. And I know that's saying a lot, but I'm not kidding. It might be the worst song I've ever heard.
It's also been number one, I believe, 13 weeks in a row now.
When I first heard it, I was hoping it was. I called it Rova Rap because that's where Corey's from, and his daughter showed my daughter. At least that's the story I like to tell myself. Obviously, everybody's heard it.
It's like I avoided it longer than most, but I've heard it now because my goddaughter. And I mean, it's like this and Baby Shark. Like things like these weird cultural things that keep happening that I keep missing out on. Almost.
Yeah. I think
Baby Shark actually would have been better for this trailer, honestly.
It would have been. I agree. I mean, simply because they talk about horses is the only reason they put it in this trailer.
Right.
I mean, that and the fact that it's the number one song in the world. But
no, it's not based on anything that song brings to the trailer. That song is clearly just mainly calculated for marketing. That's it. And it's bullshit, and it just reveals more of the bullshit that this movie is, and what Stallone's career is. Today, his career today.
Today, as opposed to last year, which was fine. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be a hit. I thought it looked good enough. Taking that song out of it, it's because it's, I'm always going to be a Stallone apologist, so I'm rooting for this movie, but that song does not help it. But yeah. Let's move on to a killer dress movie, In Fabric.
In Fabric. I mean, A24, is there anything they can't do? I mean, they made me want to see this. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a weird looking movie. It's kind of like an Argento meets that clown movie from a couple years ago. I don't know if you ever saw that. The guy ended up directing Spider-Man.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's about basically a guy puts on clown makeup and the clown makeup kills, tries to kill him.
Right.
So it's kind of like that mixed with something, with cool images and stuff. So I'm curious.
This isn't the first killer dress movie I've ever seen. There was one came out in the 90s with Laura Flynn Boyle that's pretty hilariously bad, and Anthony Perkins is in it.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, simply for the fact you call it A24.
Yeah.
It's really the only thing that makes it interesting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, because they make the best choices. I mean, Midsummer is coming out soon, and that's going to be that's the most, bigger for me than any movie that's coming out. If you told me I could only see that or Spider-Man, I'd tell Spider-Man to go fuck himself. Like, get lost, Spidey. I don't care. I'm seeing Midsummer.
There's not a single movie that I'd take over this, I don't think.
I can't think of one, and I'm sure there's plenty of movies out there that are supposed to be huge, and no, I'm only... And granted, that's probably building it up too much. Maybe it's going to only disappoint based off of that, but...
Well, yeah, it could, I suppose, but I doubt it does. I don't know.
But this looks amazing. This looks like just the kinds of weird, unique challenges and chances that A24 takes.
Definitely. And then the Goldfinch, the director of Brooklyn.
Wow, what a trailer, and what a daring, bold, unique trailer. And this really, Ansel Elgort looks pretty amazing in this. I wasn't sure what to make of it at first, but I watched it a couple times, trying to get around it and kind of wrap my mind around it. And it was really compelling, really fascinating. And as much as I've not loved his work, I'm fascinated by this and this idea.
Yeah, I don't really know what it's about per se. I'm having a hard time. Like, from the first half of the trailer, I'm kind of thinking, this is kind of boring. But, with Brooklyn, a movie that's not in my wheelhouse at all, but ended up being pretty watchable, I was thinking, okay, this will be something like that. And then it just kind of got darker and darker. So I'm definitely intrigued, but I don't know enough about it. Like, I don't know. It doesn't jump at me like Midsummer does, but that's largely due to the fact that I'm bringing a lot to that trailer as well.
Right.
But I'm intrigued is a good word.
Yeah, that's the mark of a really good trailer. We're going to talk about a movie later that has a really terrible trailer that's kind of not ruined the movie, but certainly didn't help. And this is a trailer, one of those great trailers where it tells you just enough of what you're getting yourself into, and that's really all that you need.
The trailer didn't ruin Godzilla, did it?
Godzilla ruined Godzilla.
Godzilla made $49 million.
Well, that's, according to most, that's actually a bomb, considering it was supposed to make $69 to $70 million this weekend.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Does it have a budget of $170? I'm sure it'll do fine internationally. Maybe not. I don't know. But what do you want to tell? I didn't get to see it. I had the choice of that, or my son had the choice of that, or having a pool party with his baseball team, and that's what he chose. It sounds like that was a good decision for me.
Oh, God, yes, it was. Because this movie is utterly miserable. From beginning to end, miserable. This is basically Transformers as a monster movie is basically what this is. And it's a real shame, because this is the director of Krampus and of Trick or Treat, who's actually a pretty inventive and unique director. Even if I'm not a big fan of Krampus, it's at least, it has a cult for a reason, because he's a daring and different kind of director. And so this should be much more interesting than it is, but it feels like a movie where they hired this guy specifically because he's got a cult audience and because he appeals to a kind of culty, arty horror audience that they hire him and then they just note him to death. Like, no. See, we hired you for your reputation, but we don't actually want you to do any of the things that you do. Let's be clear. And that's pretty much, then he just directs Pacific Rim crossed with Transformers and Godzilla. And it's really just really terrible all the way through. Lots of cardboard, snarky characters performing the basic cliches of this type of movie. And I was miserable from beginning to end. The human characters here are just such a complete waste of time. All the human characters do is drag out this story and just keep dragging out this unnecessary mythology that they're trying to build into this monster verse that they're creating with all these various different monsters they want to give each of their own movies to, and create their own, shared universe bullshit. And it's just so forced and aggravating. And even the monster fights that you're there for the monster fights. They take forever to get to them, first of all. But then once you get to them, it's a lot of those, Transformers slash cuts, lots of chaos and loudness. And it's just, you can't even see hardly the fight, really. Oftentimes they're cutting back to the perspective of these human characters that you don't care about watching this fight, and it's like, well, no, you've got the ability to put me in the fight. Let's get up there. And then when you do, they get too close, and the editing's too quick, and you can't really see anything. So neither approach works, and it just makes the movie just that much more miserable when you're suffering through it, because you're not getting any of the things that you want. And frankly speaking, the old Godzilla movies of the 50s is far better at delivering that, even as cheesy as they are, with cardboard buildings and a guy in a rubber suit. It is far more interesting and far better delivered in terms of the promised fight than what you get with the CGI and the big effects and the big budget. And I know that's very glib and easy to say. I understand that, but this movie is very glib, so it's reasonable to say that about this movie. There's anything I like about this other than Millie Bobby Brown, who plays she's the daughter of Vera Farmiga and Kyle Chandler. Whether they were in the last Godzilla movie, I can't even remember.
I know Kyle Chandler is. I'm assuming they all were.
I have no clue, but the bottom line is that she's their daughter. She's the most interesting character in the movie. They centered their marketing campaign around her to try and draw in the Stranger Things crowd, which I'm guessing that probably kind of worked, I guess. But she's really interesting, and she's doing some interesting work here. She's just saddled with a terrible movie and terrible other characters around her, and that's a real shame. Everything about this movie is a real shame, though. It's a really terrible film that I just found miserable from beginning to end.
Yeah, did you like the original Godzilla one that Gareth Edwards did?
Not really. I thought he directed, honestly, a better monster movie before that.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like, not having seen this one, I kind of liked Godzilla, the way that he was able to make it seemed plausible that a monster would exist in this world. Mm-hmm. It was huge, but at the same time it was small when you put it in the ocean, and it really just looked... I liked that aspect of it. Kong Skull Island, the humans started to get in the way.
Oh, yeah.
And they were a little bit in the way in Godzilla, but not enough. It just seems like now it's gotten even further in the way than it should. And I read something in your review, and obviously you don't know, but that maybe the director was trying to do a throwback to the fights of the guys in the rubber suits, but at the same time you have the studio kind of pushing back, and it ends up being just kind of a shitty combination of the two or something like that. That's what's so frustrating. Now, the guy who directed Kong hasn't really done anything, but obviously Gareth Edwards and this guy have, they've done some good movies, so it is a shame to see them get that break and then have the studios come in and just kind of totally ruin filmmaking for them, probably.
Probably. I mean, they're professional enough. They're not really saying anything terrible about their studios, and they're getting paid well enough. I'm sure they don't mind, and maybe they even like the movies that they made. I have no idea. I can't speak for them.
It could be.
I'm just speaking from my perspective. I don't see what they see on the screen. Whatever it is they were intending, I don't feel it. It just felt miserable to me from beginning to end. It's too dark in terms of just the way it looks. It's so very dark, and the effects aren't great. which I can't honestly tell whether or not that's intentional. I can't tell if the effects are bad to kind of recall the original Japanese Godzilla, or if it's bad because they're generally bad. And that's really something you need to nail. That's a trick you need to pull off if you're going to try and pull it off.
At what point do they give up on the universe? Because, I mean, obviously they're setting up King Kong versus Godzilla, which they want to do, I'm assuming, next. But if this doesn't make the money back, do they just stop? Or, I mean, I got to assume that's going to be a bigger movie than this was.
I don't think they're ever going to give up on it. I think this will make enough money internationally that they won't give up on it, but I wish they would. There's nothing really here. There's nothing holding the audience here, and I think the audience reaction that we're seeing, I mean, I got to admit, there were plenty of people who clapped at the end of this movie, which was bizarre to me, but
I hate that.
It's so dumb. They can't hear you. But no. According to the audience scores coming out of it, for the most part, though, they aren't that great.
Got a standing ovation in Davenport. 7 minutes.
It's interesting. We're talking about just briefly about audience reactions. Rotten Tomatoes is starting a new thing. Have you heard about this? Where they're going to make you put in a picture of your ticket in order to prove that you saw the movie before you can actually rate it. Which they're hoping will give them more honest ratings, and it appears to be working, at least here, if they're already doing it.
How does that work for movies like Ghostbusters or something like that from like the 80s, you know?
That I don't know.
Hopefully it's just kind of like every time they put a new movie in, maybe that's the new thing.
I think that must
be nice.
That would be the approach, is just for new movies, I guess.
But still. I mean, just because it's called Godzilla, it's ridiculous. Like Colossal movie or whatever that Anne Hathaway did a year or two ago.
So much better.
Call it Godzilla and makes $70 million, and people are like, holy shit, I just watched this awesome art house movie. But, I mean, it's basically a Godzilla movie. I don't know. It's just why something like that can't be as successful as something like this, but I guess it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Rocketman. This is directed by Dexter Fletcher and starring Taron Egerton as Elton John. And this is the story of Elton John as kind of told by Elton John. And I loved this movie from beginning to end. This one was really wonderful. It was the exact opposite experience. This is basically Elton John's dream of his own life, like what might be flashing before his eyes when he dies, is this movie, which I thought is a really great approach to telling this story and separating it from all the other music biopics out there. We find him at an AA meeting in full Elton John regalia, and he begins to tell his story, and it begins with him him having a duet with his child self on Bitch's back, which is so wonderful. What a weird, bizarre, and unique way to begin the movie. And from there, the music doesn't stop, really. It's this almost nonstop musical, and keeps kind of like the way a dream progresses from one thing to the next. Never in any it's linear in terms of the way he ages in the movie, but never linear in the way the way they choose to highlight his songs. And it does play like somebody trying to recall a story purely from memory without having any actual documentation of when something happened. And that's the way people think. It's a movie it's based kind of in the way that people think and remember things. And some of it's going to be a little bit rosy, and some of it's very honest and very bold. And I really loved that aspect. And I loved Taron Egerton is a perfect idea of a dream that Elton John would have of himself, who's a little bit more attractive. He's a little bit more polished looking. He doesn't sound like Elton John. He doesn't look like Elton John, but it's how he might dream of himself.
Well, right. No one loves, everybody's their own worst critic, whether that's a cliche, but it really is true. And there's part of me that sits here, and it kind of bugged me that he doesn't sound like Elton John, but at the same time, your point's right, and that matters. It's kind of neat, the way they went about it. So if you want to just take it on face value, surface level, rating it up against, Bohemian Rhapsody, Ray, even The Dirt, I'll take this one over all of them. by a lot, if that makes sense. Because I liked the approach, even though there was parts of me that was just like, when she sounded like Bernie Taupin actually sounded, the guy who played that sounded more like Elton John than Elton John. But it doesn't, again, none of that matters. And there's so many powerful things in this movie. That part where he hugs himself as a kid, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Not many movies can capture that the way this did. And I mean, I think a lot of people could just totally miss that and just kind of see it and watch it happen and then move on. But I mean, if you saw stuff that happened earlier in the movie and how he gets there, it's, you know, I don't know. It's that Field of Dream, let's have a catch kind of thing, only it's less cheap, you know. It's kind of earned. You have to be paying attention to really, truly get the power of that scene. This is a phenomenal movie. I mean, it really, really is. I don't know if I'm prepared to call it the best of the year yet, but it's definitely, it shocked me how good it was.
Yeah, and you know, you talk about that moment. That moment is it's a bold moment simply because it could be so cheesy and it could be, you know, hard to watch. Like, it could be cringy. It could be, but they've layered it in so beautifully that when you get there, it's so emotional and it's so moving. I adored that scene. I adore every aspect of this movie, though. Like, everybody's, yeah. I listened to a couple of critics talking about this movie, and they're talking about it so deliberately and so straightforwardly, and I'm like, you're missing the point. It's a dream of his. He's recalling this as a dream of his life, not his actual life. There's aspects of it that, I mean, many of it is true, but some of it is just somebody trying to recall something in a disparate, hazy, you know, drug-induced state, now trying to recall it as a sober person and remembering it as best they can. And that's what's so wonderful about this. And other people have talked about the psychological aspects of it and the Freudian aspects of it, where he spends so much time talking about his parents and that you know, the lacking in that relationship and the way the way it influences his life going on, and it's very obviously Freudian, but at the same time, yeah, it is. That's the approach he's taking. He's clearly a Freudian thinker. He thinks about this stuff and he believes in that, and so that's communicated here. He had a very rough relationship with his parents, and I thought they captured that beautifully. And every aspect of this is captured beautifully. Like his marriage, the marriage to a woman. I remember this vividly because I can recall as a kid the way that the media just celebrated the fact that this gay icon or this alleged gay icon was married to a woman. Aha! You see, we knew he wasn't. And I remember that even as a kid, not even understanding it, but I can recall it today. And the way they play that out, and it's just this 90-second like clip of just, he meets her, he's in this desperate place, she gives him empathy and comfort in a way that nobody else has before, and then he realizes what a horrible mistake he's made, and it's over.
The way they do it in the movie is it's so funny, but it's so powerful at the same time. It's so fast, which is great because it accomplished what it needed to, and it moved on. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I like about this movie. The parent relationship, back to that, this is clearly his version of the story. Right. They're caricatures. They're not trying to be like his real mom or dad. And because they go out of the way to make them, you know, almost unreal, I think that makes it make more sense. And the whole him hugging himself at the end, that's him saying, you know, everybody has their own story, and in their story, they're the star of that story, and you know, you project all these things on people, but then you got to get on. You know, if we watched his mom's story, it'd be a different story. He would be a different character, and this movie doesn't tell you to do that, but at the same time, it's saying you can't make your dad hug you. Right. You can't rely. You can't make your manager like you. You can't. Right. You know, you can't. You have to kind of do it for yourself. And without saying it, you know, it's just very subtle, very powerful, but in a way that can be totally missed if you're just watching it at surface level, which is what I loved about this movie. Is I don't think people realize how good it is yet. And maybe they will, maybe they won't.
The same critics I was listening to were talking about Richard Madden's character, John Reed, as as this mustache twirling villain. And again, to your point, it's like this is what he remembers of him. And of course, he's this larger than life villain in Elton's life. That's the way Elton sees him from this, historic distance. He sees this guy as this villain in his life who did these terrible things to him. And so, yes, Richard Madden's character is broad. It is a very broad villainous performance, and sometimes, and that makes perfect sense for the way the story is being told.
And it's, I can't relate to it, but at the same time, I mean, here's a guy who's on stage putting on a show all the time, kind of has to become this guy. I can imagine that, how hard that would be to turn that on and off all the time and, bury who you really are and be this big bombastic thing on stage. Other people Alice Cooper struggled with that. A lot of other artists have. And as you see him walk into AA in this over-the-top devil's costume, by the end of the movie, he's in a robe.
Right.
And you slowly see it strip away, which, again, is very subtle but very neat. Whether it means anything or not, I don't know. It did to me. So I just thought that was so cool. And, this is very much a musical, and I'm not a musical guy, so that was a hard thing to because for the most part, the songs are pretty on, but they do musical them up a little bit here and there, similar to our classic. And I feel like I'm there trying to struggle with I don't like musicals, but liking this, so it's like that inner conflict while I'm watching the movie. You're not supposed to like this kind of thing. And knowing full well that what comes out, the I'm Still Standing's the big hit from the 80s. I'm like they're so going to end with this song. And they do. But it doesn't matter. That's probably the cheesiest part of the movie. But at that point, it's supposed to be cheesy.
It is a wonderful recreation of that video. That is really spectacular. I loved that. The way they changed the film stock and everything is just, it's beautiful. It reminded me a lot, actually, of a scene in that last Mamma Mia movie. It had a similar thing where they recreated the look of a 1980s music video in that movie brilliantly, and I loved that, and I loved it here again. It's becoming one of my favorite tropes.
Did they recreate it, or did they just paste them in? I have no idea. I don't remember the video. I mean, I remember it from a long time ago.
I think they recreated it. Yeah, I think they recreated it. And whereas in Mamma Mia they didn't have a video to work from, they just recreated the look.
I mean, it was definitely fun. At that point the air is let out, you can kind of relax and enjoy. At this point you've gotten past the heavy stuff, and now it's kind of the fun part. I love the way they captured the relationship with him and Bernie Taupin. Mm-hmm. I love the way Bernie Taupin's lyrics pretty much told Elton John's story, more or less. Whether that was intentional or not, I don't know. It seemed like maybe it could have been based on Elton John's dream version of this.
I wonder how many people think that Bernie Taupin is his husband. Like they're watching this movie going, oh.
I did watch it with a very old crowd who would not shut up, which... I don't know. But I mean, none of them were saying anything offensive or anything like that. So they were clearly Elton John fans. So they knew he was gay. I didn't have to deal with anything. But one of the funniest things that happened before the movie even started is an old husband and wife walked in, and they wanted to sit. She wanted to sit in the front row, but they had to climb over two people to get there. So she's like, "Let's go sit here." And she comes with the two people. He just keeps walking up to the top. And she's standing in the middle of the movie hasn't started yet. The trailers have started, I think. But she's standing there in the front row by herself, now covered on both sides with people she's climbed over to get to their seats. And he's up at the top row, and she's like, "Really?" Flips him off. Everybody starts laughing, and then she climbs back over. The lady that she climbed over was laughing the hardest. So she had to climb back over and then follow him back up the steps.
Wow.
And I was like, this is amazing. That's something I would do, is keep walking.
Yeah.
And climbing over people. But at the same time, I hate scenes, so it would be a nightmare for me. But it was fun to watch from the side. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because I literally just got back from the theater, but I really do highly recommend this movie. It is such a... I don't know. It's just such a good movie, and I'm still processing it, from the surface level versus the actual movie.
I saw it 3 days ago, and I'm still feeling the buzz of it. It's right up there near the top for me. I'm still holding on to my daddy issues experience. That movie was to me so incredible, and so even though nobody's seen it,
right?
but Rocketman's right there with it.
Yeah, definitely go see it, and we'll get back to Elton John later on. How about Ma?
This is another bad movie. Tate Taylor directed this one, the director of The Help, and he and Octavia Spencer are very good friends, and he wanted to give her a movie to be a star of that would be different and unique that she doesn't get to make. And he decided to give her essentially a horror movie, I guess. I'm not quite sure what this movie is, because I don't know what the specific intent of this movie is. Like, what is this movie attempting to say? Is it attempting to say anything? I really don't know. Basically, the idea here is that Sue Ann, Octavia Spencer's character, is this mousy, overrun person. She doesn't have much of an inner life. She works as a vet tech. She's got she's basically just a dead end thing that she's got going on. She walks by a shop one day. A group of kids want to get some beer. They ask her to buy for them. She recognizes the name of one of the kids because it's on he's driving his dad's truck and it's got his dad's name on it as this guy who wronged her in high school. So she decides to help them by giving them alcohol. And this is the setup for a story that will play out where she's going to get them in trouble, get them looking for a place to party, take them to her house, and then begin slowly to enact her revenge on the parents via the kids, I guess. But then it's so muddled. It's so remarkably more muddled than that, because even the kid that she's choosing to take attention to isn't the main character. But the main character, her mom, even though she's the new kid in town, her mom also went to school with Sue Ann and was in on the plot that humiliated her as a kid. But she's not, I don't know, it's so convoluted and so poorly put together. But the movie, I was talking earlier about a movie that the trailer really let it down. The trailer for this movie really lets it down pretty badly, because the movie doesn't want you to know just how dangerous Sue Ann is. And the trailer is a horror movie trailer that makes her out to be a Freddy Krueger character. I mean, essentially, she's crazy all over the trailer. In the movie, she's pathetic. She's sad. She seems like she might be dangerous, but mostly they just keep painting her in these scenarios where she's this pathetic, sad, lonely person who's desperate to have the attention of these kids while also dealing with this trauma from her school years. And it's even up until the end, even up until it plays out the more violent aspects of the movie, she's still not a very menacing character. And that's a really big failure of this film, is that it doesn't build her up. It doesn't put her over in the wrestling sense of being dangerous. She does weird shit, but she's just sad. And she does kill people, but she doesn't do, it's the least interesting way of killing people, I guess. It's mostly, one of them happens off screen, and the other one is shot at a distance, like you're just far, far away from it happening. It's a woman getting hit by a car. You get a close-up of the mangled body afterwards, but you're so far at a distance that you don't really get to see it. It's almost as if the movie filmmakers were hedging their bets on whether or not they wanted to get a PG-13 or an R. And so they shot it this way specifically to give themselves an editing option, which is really pathetic. The one that happens off screen is the strangest one, because it's Allison Janney is playing this character who has absolutely no effect on the rest of the movie. She plays Sue Ann's boss at the vet's clinic, and she has absolutely nothing to do with any of the kids. She's got nothing to do with the main plot. She shows up a couple times, she's bitchy towards Sue Ann, and then she's dead. And you're like, why did you hire an Academy Award-winning actress to do absolutely nothing? It's because the laziness of this entire movie is wrapped up in that idea that we're going to hire this person because people recognize her, and then we're not going to do anything with her because we don't really have anything to do with anybody in this movie.
Yeah, I thought it looked good from the trailer. Basically, I mean, Octavia Spencer's been pretty good as of the last 5-10 years. Usually when she's in something, it's a pretty solid movie, so I assume this would be good. But at the same time, you have to really appreciate this genre, like someone like Jordan Peele, who's a big fan of it, to really make a convoluted movie. You have to have all your loose ends tied up, like he did with Us and Get Out, for that matter. Because if one's untied, the whole thing falls apart. And like we sat with Us and we talked about that movie, and we tried to untie them all, and we really didn't at all. So it's kind of a shame. I wanted this to be good. It sucks that it's not. I mean, even as you were starting to describe it, the trailer was kind of helping me know where this was going, right. And the fact that she was embarrassed. If that's going to result in murder, then murder them right off the bat and don't even bother with anything else.
Right.
And then on top of the fact that knowing the main character is female and you're talking about someone's son, I'm like, okay, so it just seems like a lot of weird choices for this movie.
It is. It's a lot of unusual choices. She's working very hard, Octavia Spencer. She's working real hard to put this to make this work, and the movie just lets her down. There's not enough. There's no attention to detail. Like, all the supporting characters are very weak. Their performances, their motivations, they're there just as cannon fodder. Horror movie cannon fodder, not unlike any other horror movie where they invent these obnoxious characters whose only trait is that they're obnoxious, and so you don't mind that they're dead if they die.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And Diana Silvers is in this movie too, which is a real shame because she was so great last week in Booksmart, and now we get her here and she's completely let down. She's the main. She's basically playing out all the final girl cliches. All the stuff that you see of that girl who's guaranteed to survive the movie, and that's she's so much better than that.
Well, the trailer worked in getting people to the theater. It did make almost $20 million on a $5 million budget, so that's good. And it's 62 on Rotten Tomatoes, so somebody liked it. Audience is kind of in the same boat too. I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. I don't. They don't do anything with the racial aspect of it, which is really bizarre because at times the racial thing comes up and then they completely get away from it as quickly as possible because they're deathly afraid of adding anything of depth to this movie. They don't want to have to actually explore anything. So, yeah, it's just a shame.
All right, let's move on.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized Undisputed Classic.
So the record Tommy turned 50, and Elton John's in it. It's kind of a musical, so Tommy's a classic.
Tommy, Ken Russell, of course, the director of The Devils and any number of bizarre and unique movies, directing a movie that essentially takes Tommy and turns it to his needs of wanting to deconstruct religion and dedication to organized religion specifically. And that's really kind of the crux of the story from the Ken Russell perspective. He's trying to force Tommy the record into the context of what Ken Russell wants to say about organized religion, and it comes out kind of muddled. Some of it works, some of it doesn't work. I don't know. I can't tell if I liked this or not. I know I struggle with liking the record, Tommy. It's such a self-indulgent, overlong record at times that has these deeply transcendent moments in it that are just like Pinball Wizard's incredible. It's an incredible song. There are aspects of it that work, but at the same time, when you're listening to Tommy and the shifting perspectives of whether or not Roger Daltrey is Tommy or he's singing to Tommy or singing about Tommy, it gets kind of weird in trying to figure out what their point is too. And it gets kind of weird trying to figure out what the point of this is as well. At times it appears to be a deconstruction of organized religion. Then for a minute, it's a deconstruction of culture, of consumerism and television for just like 3 minutes of Anne Margaret rolling around in baked beans. and then that aspect is gone. But then it comes back later when they try and consumerize Tommy into a Jesus as a commodity. And that kind of works for a minute, but then it's gone. And I don't know. And then there's all those really problematic elements, like the cruelty and abuse of a mentally handicapped person comes up and is dealt with in a very comical fashion. Like, it's very funny that people are abusing this deaf, dumb, and blind kid. That's supposed to be hilariously funny. It's not. I don't find it funny. That song Uncle Ernie it was problematic when they made it, and it remains just as problematic today. The Acid Queen is just completely out of nowhere. It fits none of the allegory that Ken Russell's going for. It's not a part of the record.
It is.
Tom, oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some songs that aren't. Now, the purpose of the Acid Queen is a different thing. Mm-hmm. At that point in because the record and the Ken Russell's, they do kind of go parallel. They are a little different, but they do kind of tell the same story. But I think during that point, they're trying to cure him from his deaf, dumb, and blindness, and that's what.
Right.
That it just, I think in the movie, she's supposed to fuck him, and that's how they cure it. And in the record, I think it's more of a gypsy kind of curing him that way. Maybe I'm missing. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's kind of the way I interpreted it. But I don't know. I like it, but I more of just kind of an art house kind of cool imagery. I'm a prog rock guy, so I like the indulgent instrumental stuff. I like the coming back to chord progressions and whatnot, and even listening to hearing, Tenacious D took this for Pick of Destiny or something like that was kind of, because obviously Tommy's not one I listen to a lot. It's because, like you said, there's one good song on it, maybe two. There's good moments, like the part in Almost Famous where they play the middle of one of the songs instead of actual song. But I ended up liking it a lot more this time than I ever had before. I don't know. I think Ken Russell's neat. It's weird to see Oliver Reed, is that his name, sing when he really can't. But I thought it worked. Roger Daltrey, the narrator, it was him, but then he also plays Tommy, so that's why that was probably confusing. Yeah. But I don't know. It's a it's a rock opera, so it's not. I don't know. It's one of those where it's saying a million things but nothing at all at the same time kind of thing, and I can appreciate that. And it's such a random, weird story. I mean, is he really deaf, dumb, and blind just because they pretty much tricked, or I don't know what the word is, but because he watched basically the story. Tommy's mom is married to a guy in the military. Right. He goes overseas. She thinks he's dead. That's kind of at least how I interpreted it. She meets another guy. They start raising Tommy as theirs. The real dad comes back. He kills the real dad, and they kind of do a trance or something on Tommy where he didn't see or hear it. So he didn't witness it. And by saying that, now he's deaf, dumb, and blind. But is he really that way, or is he just think he's that way? I think he thinks he's that way because that would explain pinball. I don't know.
Pinball Wizard is the best part of the movie.
I hated it. It's the worst part of the movie.
I think it's the best part of the movie. I love that. I love the performance. I love the out of control crowd and Elton John, and I really adore that scene. I thought it was just it's the most amped up crazy part, and it's a crescendo.
Yeah, and the Who's out there for it, and I just hate that version of the song so much. And they actually do it in Rocketman too. Almost identical in with Tara Edgerton singing it. I don't know. I hate the way he changes the melody. I hate the way none of that matters.
I really love that. The religious stuff is Ken Russell hates organized religion. He hates it, but he kind of, but like a lot, but like a lot of other like a lot of religious people, he kind of has an idea. Apparently, like I kind of got that he admires the idea of Jesus, and that's kind of what Tommy represents, is the idea of Jesus, as opposed to the way that everybody around Jesus commodifies him and uses him and manipulates him. And that aspect of the movie appeals to me, but it's so vague at times, and it's so forced upon the music of The Who.
And they don't even get to it till the end.
Right.
A little bit early on and then a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
Because earlier on they're singing about him not at the Christmas part where he's going to go to hell because he doesn't know how to worship God because he can't see or hear or do anything. And then at the end when they finally cure him, they turn him into basically Jesus, and then he turns all his followers into him, deaf, dumb, and blind. Which, I don't know. To me, more than anything, it's I like Ken Russell's imagery. Why she's swimming around in baked beans and whatever that is, I don't know, but I thought it was cool.
He hates TV, and he hates he hates the narcotized culture of television and the commercialization, and so that's what he was going for, I guess. Yeah,
I do think the religious stuff's in Tommy, the record, but yeah, I don't know, but he definitely adds other stuff to it. But I just the imagery more than anything is what I found that mixed with the music. I enjoyed it kind of together. I would like this. I like this better than The Wall, I guess, if that makes sense. The Wall just takes the record and puts images to it. Right. This kind of does its own little thing with it, and I just find Ken Russell fascinating. I don't really know anything about him. I've never seen The Devils, and maybe it's because I'm waiting for this band version to finally be released someday. But I don't know. Anything else on Tommy before we move on?
Not really. I don't know where I come down on it. I find it muddled. I find the religious stuff to be fascinating, but I also forced, and so that's where I also find the same with the record. I like it in fits and starts. I
did read something on the record where at one point it was largely hailed as this classic, and over time it's kind of it's fallen off a little bit in terms of a concept record or a rock opera. I saw The Who once, like right after John Entwistle died, and they did the encore is like this 35-minute medley of Tommy. All I knew at that point was Pinball Wizards when they did that in the middle. I was like, okay, we can go now. They've played all the songs I like. All right, let's move on.
Since this is Aunt Bethany's 80th Christmas, I think she should lead us in the saying of grace.
What, dear? Grace! Grace! She passed away 30 years ago.
Did you watch all 4 of these?
I did.
You watched Renegades?
Yeah.
Any good?
No, it's god-awful. Lou Diamond Phillips is a Native American, a Lakota Indian, even though he's Filipino and Dutch Irish. Nevertheless, he's brown, so he's clearly he can be Native American because he's brown. That's
Works
basically that's how the movie works in the 1980s. It's fine. He's carrying the Lakota spear, which is magical, and it's rumored that it could go through 3 buffalo at once. That's why it's so magical. And he's going to take it to New York City to show it off at a museum. It ends up being stolen by guys who Kiefer Sutherland as a cop is investigating and is undercover with, and Lou Diamond Phillips blames him for it going missing. So the two of them have to team up and take down this Italian mobster who, for reasons make sense only to him, stole that Lakota spear. This movie is terrible. It's just complete and utter nonsense from beginning to end, and it's all just those cliches about Native Americans, because he's got magic Native American powers where he can track anything and he can show up anywhere. So Kiefer Sutherland early on in the movie gets shot and is dying in a car, and there's absolutely no way that Lou Diamond Phillips could know where he is, but he finds him, of course, and then takes him to his dad, who's a medicine man, who saves him even though he's got a bullet wound in his stomach and he has no medicine whatsoever. He just uses his magical Native American powers to heal him. And then he uses magical Native American powers throughout to be wherever he needs to be in order to make the plot happen.
That's hilarious.
It's
horrible.
It's awful and it's offensive, and yeah.
Love you, 1989. Dead Poet Society.
Dead Poet Society, yeah. This is one of the all-time greats. This is Robin Williams as the inspiring teacher, and Robin Williams in that kind of Goodwill Hunting mode where he's at his most Robin Williams, at his best, where he's supporting others and very empathetic and caring and just beloved. I love this movie. I love this character. I love these characters. A group of granted, and you shouldn't, because they're a bunch of overprivileged little douchebags for the most part. But they've got a lot of soul to them, and they've got a lot of heart to them, and there's a depth to each of these characters that goes beyond their privilege, and that's what really the movie is exploring is the way that they find themselves, and they find their own basic humanity, and like these are the people who you wish would grow up to be the leaders of the future, the ones who actually, took the time to learn about poetry and care about other people and have that deep of empathy and romance. And that's why I love these characters and I love this movie.
But what if their parents were the ones that, bribed people to get... Even though they learn about poetry.
Every one of these people it's all bribed. You're paying that much money. It's all basically a bribe at that point. We talk about that ridiculous scandal. Trump built an entire wing of Georgetown to get his daughter into college, and nobody bats an eye.
No, you just take down Becky from Full House, and you're good.
We got her. Fight the real enemy.
All the world's problems are done. I've always loved this movie, but I kept, as I got older, feeling like maybe it was overrated, and then I'd go watch it, and then I'd realize it's not, but then I get away from it again and start thinking it's overrated again, and it is that good. I think it might just be because I was too young when it came out, and I had Good Will Hunting, or that's my Robin Williams movie, I guess, where he's when he's actually acting and not jumping around on cocaine. But watching it again, it's a hell of a movie, and I'm shocked at what won the Oscar this year.
Oh gosh, it's escaping me right now. Was it? Oh my God! Oh no! Was it Driving Miss Daisy? It might be Driving Miss Daisy.
Because next year is Dances with Wolves.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Ugh.
I don't understand how... Because, people still quote and talk about this movie, and...
Right.
They don't... Other than making fun of... they don't really quote Drive Miss Daisy like they do this one.
No.
You might hear a joke making fun of it if... someone's driving or whatever.
Yeah, Driving Miss Daisy is remembered for all the wrong reasons. A perfect reflection of the Academy. The Green Book of its day.
And I haven't seen Driving Miss Daisy in forever, if I've even seen it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's as watchable as Green Book is.
I can't even imagine.
Can't wait till we have to watch it, though. Vampire's Kiss.
Vampire's Kiss. This is the one where all those Nicolas Cage memes come from. The bug eyes, the ABCs, just the wild hair, all that stuff. And granted, he's done other memeable stuff over the years, but this is where it comes from initially. This is the story of a guy named Peter who has an encounter with a woman who is into biting, and is played by Jennifer Beals, and leads him to this sort of madness where he believes that he may be a vampire, and he begins craving blood and trying to live at night as opposed to feeling like the sunlight is killing him and that kind of thing. And this movie is absolutely incredible. I really you forget just how brilliant Cage can be because the memeable stuff gets all the attention, all the craziness, but he's doing something with the crazy in this that is very reminiscent of what he does with Mandy, which is he takes all of the insane Nicolas Cage stuff and turns it into something so much more powerful, and that's what he's doing here. He's playing essentially Renfield from the Dracula movies as opposed to playing Dracula, which is Jennifer Beals is kind of playing a supporting version of Dracula. He's essentially Renfield going mad, from this being drained regularly of blood and all this nonsense. And the movie is brilliant in the way that it kind of gives you an idea that he might have just been bit by a bat and has rabies. Like, this may just be induced by rabies and he's just dying. But it also could be that he's just losing his mind and losing his grip on reality in general. And there's so many different ways to explore that. But the way he explores it is by just diving whole head into this idea of this Renfieldian madness where it's just ever amping up insanity. There's a character played by Maria Conchita Alonso named Alma who becomes the focus of his ire, and he keeps increasingly doing these crazy things towards her, and it's really fascinating the way that builds, and it's so important to the way the movie ends. I love this movie. I love this movie almost as much as I love Dead Poet Society. Like, in terms of my favorite movies of '89, this is like, these two are right up there. I dig this movie a lot. This movie is very bold. It takes like what is essentially like an almost Cinemax 80s erotic thriller look and basic feel, and gives it this crazy hammer horror performance by Nicolas Cage, to where the blandness of the look of the movie, the very 80s sort of slick blandness of the look, actually gives him this bigger platform to play with, because he is so outsized and so unique. He stands apart so much from the background that it makes the film feel different and feel unique, even more unique than you might think. It's so good.
I didn't finish it, but he's not a vampire, right? Or is it kind of leaving it up to your...
That's kind of up to your imagination.
I think Nicolas Cage is always that brilliant. It's just whether the director is able to use it properly.
Yeah.
You look at a movie like Wicker Man, and you can tell he's going for it, and the director's just like not sure what to do with it.
Right.
So it just ends up being this laughable scene where he's running a bear suit. But I mean, put Panos Cosmatos in that, make him direct that movie, and I'm sure it's fucking phenomenal.
Oh yeah. Like, I at the end of my review, I was talking about my dream of what Vampire's Kiss a remake could be with Panos Cosmatos directing it. I think that would be amazing. Sam Rockwell in this Cage role, Cage as a consultant. I think that would be fucking incredible.
But even like something like Tommy, I was watching that going, you just would never see something like this ever again. And then I was thinking who could do it, and obviously Panos Cosmatos is the guy who pops in my mind.
Right.
But even they have Eric Clapton, not to get back to the classic, but Tina Turner and Eric Clapton and all these huge stars are in it. And it's just like, even like Beyonce would never let herself look like Tina Turner looked in this movie.
True.
You couldn't do stuff. It's hard to remake. It would be cool to see them try the Vampire's Kiss, but I don't know, watching. It reminded me of an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they're convinced they're cannibals. So they start craving human meat. Found at the end, Frank goes, no, it was just this. It was just regular ground beef. And I was just like, oh, that's where they got that from. And then No Holds Barred. Don't give it this much credit. It doesn't deserve your laugh right now. This is not even fun bad.
No, not really. It's really awful in every way.
I mean, I think.
So you'd never seen this before?
I knew about it because my cousin had saw it, and we were I was somewhat into wrestling. I really got into wrestling at the latter half of, not even latter half, like the end of Hulk Hogan, kind of moving into that, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels era. And so I knew about it, and you knew who Zeus was, but I never, I kind of saw the wrestling angles on TV where they hid Donnie Lister from the audience because he couldn't actually wrestle. But I'd never seen the movie, and I'm not upset. I kind of wish I still hadn't seen the movie. the idea of it was way better than this. I don't know. I thought it'd be way more fun, Roadhouse-ish, if you would. It's not even a little bit fun. It's just bad. Like really, 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 really bad. And I won't argue with someone to call it the worst movie of all time. I'm not going to go that far, but it's not. I was really disappointed. You listen to How Did This Get Made and how much fun they had talking about it. That episode's way better than this movie was. It's way more fun to listen to that than this movie. There's Something to Wrestle With where they talk about this movie.
Yeah. That's
way better than this is just nothing entertaining about it at all.
No, it's the wrestling's bad. Even they can't even get that part of it right. Most popular wrestler in the world at the time, and they can't even get the wrestling part right.
He was never a good wrestler. That might be part of the problem. It is funny though that because is Brutus Barber Beefcake in this, or he's kind of in it, or
I think he's kind of in there.
He was really unhappy with his role, and but he was just like whatever. He was in it just enough to get insurance through the union, and then when he had that giant accident, this movie saved him millions of dollars when he got that jet ski accident where his face got caved in and nearly died. All because of this movie. It's the most interesting thing I have to add that you haven't heard on every other podcast. I was really bummed about how bad this was.
It's just not even fun, huh?
No, I mean it's you talk about, Godzilla and the studio people getting involved and, kind of ruining what could be an okay thing, at least. This, you have Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan not calling himself Hulk Hogan, which he should have, because they ended up using this as a wrestling angle.
Yeah, it got weird, yeah.
So you're not doing that, but it was very calculated as to why, because they wanted to be able to sell rip stuff,
right?
And you just kind of it was way too, and maybe it's just years of watching shoot interviews and listening to Something to Wrestle With and stuff like that I can just kind of see Vince McMahon's head turning as he wrote this with Hulk Hogan in over the course of 3 days and a lot of cocaine, from what I understand. I don't know.
The story goes that a TV executive wants to hire the most popular wrestler in the world to be part of his new wrestling organization, and he decides to use nefarious means to do so, hiring thugs to beat up the guy's brother to make him work for him, and he says no, and then he gets this guy to call him out on TV, and eventually gets the match, but then Rip destroys everything. I guess that's how it goes, right?
Pretty much. And even the quasi, I don't want to call it a sex scene, but the scene where he's working out in his underwear next to her in bed.
So awkward.
Yeah, it's not even, I don't know. Maybe I literally popped it in as soon as we finished recording last week and watched it instantly after he left and was just bummed.
Yeah, because you want it to be funny bad, and
maybe it is if there you don't have 30 years of having all this build up to it. Which I guess Roadhouse had too, but at least I got that. Yeah. It didn't have the heart that Roadhouse had.
That's true.
I think that's really what it...
Because Swayze's actually a really good actor.
Well, that helps, too. You got a Playboy Playmate and Hulk Hogan as your stars.
Yeah, no.
And then your cartoon bad guys from every other 80s movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the same actors that played in those other movies.
Oh, God.
Well. All right. Sorry for not liking No Holds Barred, everybody who's out there. Especially our wrestling audience. Next week, we got Dark Phoenix, the new X-Men movie, and Secret Life of Pets 2. Our classic is Hot Rod. Why do you ask? Because we have a guest.
Zach Covemaker is going to join us next week.
He's going to fill in, playing the third guest this week, or the third host. And we let him pick the classic, and Sean said okay.
I could end up regretting this, sure.
Is this a Happy Madison movie?
I don't know, honestly. It might be.
They ended up, I think pretty much everything is done since then has been Happy Madison universe.
I like Lonely Island to a point. Some of it works. A lot of it is a little bit cringy to me.
Did you watch the Jose Canseco thing?
I did.
All of it?
It didn't make me laugh.
I watched it for 5 minutes. I'm like, I get it. And then I moved on.
I kept waiting for it to build into something completely hilarious, and it really doesn't.
Too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Hot Rod. I've never actually seen it. It's Andy Samberg's first movie, so I'm at least curious.
I'm hopeful that time makes it better than my memory of it.
Oh, if you're going to have that attitude, Billy Madison the week after that. Let's go.
Yeah, no. That's never going to work.
Star Trek V, The Final Frontier turns 30, and that's the only thing that turns 30, so it's going to be a quick podcast. But I'm sure there's probably some stuff on Netflix that...
I do want to see Always Be My Maybe with Randall Park, and now I, of course, would forget her name from Crazy Rich Asians. But yeah, I might watch that.
Yeah, and there was something else I can't even remember the name of it that I thought I wanted to see, but half the time I can't tell if it's a TV show or not.
I hate this whole Netflix model. There's Ava DuVernay apparently put out a new movie that's on Netflix right now, and I'm like, what? Where did that come from? One of my favorite directors just put out a movie, and I have no idea it's there.
Well, but then you see, I see Renee Zellweger's in this show. Was it What If or whatever? I don't remember what it's called, but I was like, I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm like, oh,
it's a TV show.
Episodes. Got time for episodes.
Got a movie podcast to do. Get out of here.
Hopefully that Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston movie comes out next week. We can talk about
it. Might be already out. Who knows? That's the Netflix model.
I would assume that would be on the front page, but maybe not. But yeah, that is our show. Before I let you go, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. We'll start with a Key Grip Level and Charlie Messing and Jason Bryant, the Hall of Fame podcaster. Our character actors Josh and Beth Paul, Cousin Jeff, and Christina Cato.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effects level, Corey Finneran from Ivy Envy and Sarah Morrell.
May the Force be with you.
Our associate producer, Jason Mollett.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars, Uncle Jeff and Dave Sievers.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
ihatecritics.net/Patreon is the best way to help support the podcast. Or PayPal's there too. You click on that link. And the podcast merch is also a tab on our website. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show, and all that good stuff. And do you want to stick around for a little flick chart, or you got to get going?
I'm good.
All right. Inside Out, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Inside Out.
I agree.
Although I think Benjamin Button is far too maligned.
Zach and Mary make a porno. Thank you for smoking.
Tough one.
Yeah.
Tough one. Not sure where I come down on that. I love Zach and Mary. I think it's a really underrated movie. I'll go Thank You for Smoking.
I think I will too, as much as I like Zach and Mary. Thank You for Smoking introduced me to Aaron Eckhart in the good way, and so I'm always kind of rooting for him, even though he does make some choices.
Yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox Moon.
Oh, Jesus. And I can't fishing with Gandhi on this.
You can. I'm just going to pick Moon.
I would actually pick the Fox.
All right, Josh. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, George, help me and Josh out. Yes, Moon wins. Ben-Hur Wanted. The 1959 Ben-Hur.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go Wanted on this because Ben-Hur is 15 hours long.
I'm actually with you on that one.
I know Wanted isn't good, but I couldn't possibly even imagine. Watching Ben-Hur might be my worst nightmare.
In a heartbeat, I'd put Wanted in right now.
Right.
Over. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Doctor Strange. Hold on, that's a cartoon. That's not the right Doctor Strange. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Meet the Parents.
I mean, you couldn't pick two different movies like that. I mean, it's so different.
And you can't. This is one where what I'd watch, I don't think plays a role.
Yeah, I would easily watch Meet the Parents.
Me too.
Yeah,
but I think Fear and Loathing's better.
Probably a better movie.
So what are you picking?
Meet the Parents.
Oh, let's flip for it. I do like Meet the Parents, though. George likes drugs. Let's see here. Stargate or Just Married?
Jesus. Stargate?
Sure. Ooh, Free Fire, the Lincoln Lawyer. You hated Free Fire. I liked Free Fire.
Lincoln Lawyer is actually a pretty good movie.
I'm trying to remember it. I know I've seen it.
Matthew McConaughey as the Lincoln Lawyer. Drives around as Lincoln as a lawyer.
All right, we can go with that one. The Aristocats, 1970, or Fluke, 19... I'm just going to reset all these. Saw 2, Chinatown.
Oh, man. I'll go Chinatown, but I love Saw 2.
I go Chinatown. Of the first 3 Saws, I like 2 the least. House on Haunted Hill, 99, Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the Sun was a bit of a disappointment when I saw it, but
Haunted House.
Yeah, it's better than
House on Haunted Hill is the other one. Let's see here. Shrek 2, Dr. Seuss, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Ron Howard one.
What was the other option?
Shrek 2.
Shrek 2.
I agree.
It's weird. Do you find it odd how? I mean, I know that kids seem to still love Shrek, but I can't even barely remember Shrek anymore.
I don't even know that kids love Shrek
I hear
anymore.
people refer to Shrek a lot. Like the kids at the movie theater refer to Shrek a lot.
Because I don't hear it as much as I would like to. I liked Shrek a lot when they came out. And it really has kind of faded away, though, for me, even though, I mean, I had, we've made the joke on the show, I used to have, essentially a body pillow-sized doll of Shrek that I used as a body pillow that annoyed the fuck out of my wife. But one time while camping, she threw into a fire. But, I mean, it was funny, too. I like body pillows because I just like to hold on to things, and she doesn't like big fat arms hanging on her, so Shrek worked. But I don't know.
In other words, Bob's a cuddler.
Yes. Fun with Dick and Jane, Girl Interrupted.
Girl Interrupted, although I do like that weird fallow Jim Carrey period.
7, Aaron Brockovich.
7.
I agree. Jingle All the Way, The Whole 9 Yards.
I just wrote about The Whole 9 Yards.
Good things or bad things?
Mostly bad. But nothing is as bad as Jingle. A few things are as bad as Jingle All the Way.
See, I enjoyed The Whole 9 Yards when I saw it. I haven't really gone back to it.
Yeah, it's not really worth going back to. It was the first hit comedy of this century.
Really?
Really the first hit movie of this century when you get down to it. It was the first $100 million movie of 2000.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's probably brought... Was that the one that brought the R-rated comedies back then? Was that before American Pie?
Yeah, it was before American Pie. Yeah, because this one was released in February of 2000.
Oh, wow. I wasn't sure if American Pie was 99 or something.
Yeah, American Pie was 99.
Oh, so American Pie was... Okay. Either way. The R-rated comedy came back for a while there, and then it faded, and it came back. And Naked Gun 2.5, The Sting.
The Sting is really, really overrated. Naked Gun, it's funnier.
I'd watch it faster. Dead Poet Society, Open Water.
Dead Poet Society. Although I do have an appreciation for Open Water.
This is hard for me because Open Water really, affected me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I do think Dead Poet Society is probably better, but, similar to something like Buried, and what I thought Gravity was going to be, this is just two people sitting in the ocean forever, and that is my biggest fear far and away. Partly due to this movie, partly due to those, the Minnesota Vikings players that had their deep-sea fishing and the boat flipped over. That idea is just terrifying to me. So, we'll go Dead Poet Society just because it turned 30, but I think that's an underrated horror movie. I'd almost put it on the same level as Jaws, but I don't know, whatever. The Hobbit, I Am in Love. I don't know what I Am in Love is.
Yeah, I don't either.
The Hobbit, Finding Nemo.
Oh, it's Finding Nemo by a lot. Hobbit sucks.
Super 8, Jackass the movie.
Super 8?
Yeah, although I got to admit, the Jackass movies are way better than they should be. I always hated everything they did, but I never watched it. Yeah. I just hated it from a distance. And then I started watching one of them. I'm just like, holy shit, this is hilarious. And
some of it is, yeah. I mean,
some of it's gross.
It's really dumb, yeah, but some of it's pretty funny. I remember when I first began writing for you at Zoiks Online, one of the things I wrote about was Jackass, and in a kind of a nod to the satirical edge of that site. I wrote a review of Jackass, or was it Jackass 3D maybe, where basically people, if you clicked on the link, it just opened up to a page of my review going, "Why are you reading a review of Jackass 3, Jackass 3D?"
That is true. I'll be that trailer with that big giant hand that smacks Bam. I don't know why I find that hilarious, but he's just walking in the room holding his coffee. Oh, in this life-size hand.
Boom! It's that.
I mean, it's lazy, but it's not lazy because they're actually hitting.
I think part of the appeal is it's some of it seems like the kind of stuff you want to do to your friends.
Well, it's one of those, if you're sitting in a room, it's like lazy humor. But it's huge drawn out stunts and jokes that you have to pull off that, I don't know, just adds, I don't know. It is what it is, but it's still lost. Elf, Varsity Blues.
Elf, I guess.
I know Elf is better, but I do love me some Varsity Blues. I grew up in Geneseo, Illinois, and it's not quite Varsity Blues, but It might as well be. So we're flipping. It's Elf.
I have no passion for it, so.
And I've had a crush on Allie Larder ever since then. Cry Freedom, Love Actually.
Love Actually.
I agree. V for Vendetta, Blade Trinity.
V for Vendetta.
Don't really like that movie, but it is better than Blade Trinity. Lethal Weapon 4, The Boondock Saints.
Oh, God, what a miserable choice.
No, it's not. It's Lethal Weapon 4.
Oh, it is Lethal Weapon 4, yeah, because Boondock Saints is the plague as a movie, but...
It's the most overrated movie of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Three Amigos, Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
Watched Goodfellas last night in bed. My son was in the other bed. It was either that or The Devil's Rejects. And I couldn't, he was sleeping, but I didn't want him to wake up. That's a good way to end it.